Hello, GLOBEBUSTERS. Yes, of course they're serious. You do? You have? No kidding. Uh-huh. Oh, they'll cure your globitis this week. Thank you. We got one!
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the GLOBEBUSTERS.
What are you supposed to be, some kind of a cosmonaut?
No, we're exterminators.
And now, here's your host.
And welcome everybody to GLOBEBUSTERS, Flat Earth. Can it really be true? I am your host, Bob Xanadude60, and yes, Virginia, it can really be true, because it is true. But we're going to get to that, and we're going to answer some more questions along those lines, because it is, admittedly a crazy subject. It's something that, the first time any of us heard about this, guaranteed, anybody on this panel, virtually anybody in the chat, they heard it and went, wow, that's just stupid, right? We all were there. And unfortunately, we get a lot of the same type of repetitive questions over and over and over. And, it's really easy for us as flat earthers to tell people to simply go research it yourself and look it up. But most of us who got in this community have been in it for like 5-6 years. I mean, this is GLOBEBUSTER's 6th year that we're doing this now. And, there used to be a time back in 2015, 2016, 2017 when Flat Earth absolutely buried the needle on the YouTube, Google, any search algorithm. It was out there. I mean, more searches than the President of the United States. It was absolutely insane. You could find anything. And then, of course, when Congress intervened with Google and said, all right, what are you going to do? Well, all these people claiming the Earth is flat. And they said, well, basically, we're going to put other content up ahead of theirs, stuff that debunks it, stuff that makes them look foolish, yada, yada, yada. Or also, put up indicators saying, no, the Earth is not flat. But basically to demote our content as flat earthers and promote stupid people's content like Wolfie6020 or Professor Dave, who came out of nowhere with like 0 subs, or Cyman Dan, right? With 0 subs, all of a sudden gets hundreds of thousands of subs and millions of hits. This is all, Google playing with their recommendations and their audience. And, we are definitely facing that war. And unfortunately, the casualty out of it is the newcomer to Flat Earth that is coming into us and saying, well, why would they do this? What is the purpose? How come I can't see Europe from New York? All these crazy questions that most flat earthers think, oh God, seriously, you haven't done any research at all. But to be fair, guys, I think we all know that, if we search for these answers, they are not easy to find. And all we're going to find is stupid answers that basically promote the flip side of those questions, trying to make it look even worse. So people looking for those questions are going to find a response that is derogatory, that is shaming, all the stuff that they want to do to anybody that is prospectively looking into the flat Earth model, right? I mean, we know how it works, man. It's like a school ground. You treat the kid, like he's got something to be ashamed of because he asked a question, and it's absurd, but that is exactly the technique that the government uses and recommends. And, even psychologically promotes, because we all do it and we don't even realize that we do it. Think about that for a while, guys. Have you ever thought about why it's like so many people, when they first hear about Flat Earth, they react so unbelievably violently? It's crazy, right? It doesn't make any sense at all. And yet somehow we have been programmed subconsciously to react that way. And really, if you think about it, why? If flat earth is that dumb, just like anything else, if you heard it and you thought it was just stupid, would you pay any attention to it? Of course you wouldn't. But there's something very, very special about this, right?
Like if you disagree with Bigfoot, it's not like you're going to fly off the handle like anti-Bigfoot boycotting, right? You just ignore it.
Exactly.
Right? This is definitely different for sure.
Yeah. So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. And so I figured, you know what? I got some emails this week and I got some comments. And even though I read the comments and, you know, a couple of guys claiming to be engineers saying, oh, I can solve this easy, no problem. It's like, it's very clear to me that they do not understand the problem that is being represented here, specifically to the show that we did on Sunday, which was related directly to vacuums, right? Or spacecraft, the impossibility of spacecraft. Of course, you saw, if you were here Sunday, you saw the show. If not, you know, go back and watch it. So I'm going to kind of answer those questions, respond to that. And then we had one lady who I'm not exactly sure what to think of. I'm not sure if she's just a new troll, but she's been writing in and asking every one of the GLOBEBUSTERS questions. And I will tell you this much, what's her name? Megsy or Tina, whatever your name is. It's Tina and Megsy. You know who you are. If you respond the way that you did to John the Morgile, then you're finished here. We won't even respond to you because basically,
well, you know.
Oh, go ahead, Don.
Well, here's the thing, man. Like, you know, if you're looking to other people for answers in your research of flat Earth, you're already on the wrong wavelength. And I don't mind answering questions. Like, I'll try to help people understand. But at the same time, you're going to really have to think about this for yourself. And if somebody goes out of their way to try to, like, help you understand, and then you just totally disregard it and snub what they're saying and essentially ignore it, and then change the subject, that's such a troll thing to do. I mean, I've seen enough trolls in my time to know that's their MO. Now, I'm not saying she's a troll, but she sure smells like a troll. I'm just saying. Like, no offense or anything, but
yeah. Oh, and we're inundated by trolls right now. I'm sitting here looking at all these. And by the way, guys, if I mention your name, you're banned. Anti-Liral, Kyle Gray, Missive Monger, Harry Satchel. I'm very bored and have nothing better to do. All of you have been bored, especially I'm very bored and have nothing better to do. Dude, you posted hundreds of comments on GLOBEBUSTERS this week and not one of them ever saw the light of day. But that's how dumb you are. You didn't even go back to see if they ever made it to the light of day. And they didn't because I deleted them all. We don't want people like you on. I don't care about people like you. You're not the people we're trying to convince. And frankly, we think you're even dumber than most of your globe counterparts. So why don't you just go away, right? What is your problem? Why do you have to be here, right? If you disagree with it, then disagree with it, walk away. You know, otherwise you're just worthless and you're sitting here beating a dead horse as far as you're concerned. We don't care what you say. We don't give a damn what you say. We know exactly. We've done the research. We've done the science. We know exactly what's going on. And we know how brainwashed all of you are. And, you know, it's like, it's just pointless to do this. This show is for people that are investigating flat Earth. Go ahead, John.
We welcome dissent and we welcome argument, but when it gets to the point where you just completely ignore valid points, refuse to acknowledge a valid point, and just ad hominem attack is really the only thing you've got, it wears thin, man. And like, we don't have time for that. There's other people out there that are genuinely curious, that are actually looking into this, giving it the old college try, that are dissuaded, because then we end up treating everybody like that. And I'm probably guilty of it too, man. So, you know, it's just such a frustrating thing, man.
Yeah,
anyway,
it really is. But anyway, we're going to go through that today. But, you know, like I said, you globers that are in here trolling, you are losers to the nth degree. I mean, if this is all you have to do with your life is to troll flat earthers and you think it's the dumbest thing on earth, how pathetic is your life? Wow, how pathetic. So anyway, okay, so let's get back to, let's go ahead and introduce the rest of the panel. Well, John, we've already heard from, so we'll move on from him and go to Mr. John Savage. And how you doing today, John?
Hey, Bob. Hey, everyone. Yeah, I'm doing well. A bit of a hiatus, about 5 weeks, I think it's been since I was on. I couldn't make it last week, but yeah, looking forward to the show. I can relate to this quite a lot because I must have spent the first 4 years of Flat Earth answering idiots on Twitter, and I thought it would be good for people to see someone answering the idiots, but it turns into an, as you said, ad hominem. You will reply to one of their questions and totally blow them out of the water with evidence and everything, and then they'll just ignore all of that and move on to their next bullet point. And I came to the conclusion that they're literally following a script, and I wasn't going to waste my time over it anymore. And it affected me as well. Whenever it just, you'd get the sweaty armpits, you go and kick the dog and shout at the wife and to me it was just, forget it, I'm not doing it anymore.
That rhetoric sounds paranoid, but then if you look into government documents like outlining JTRIG and things like that, it's like something that they're not even hiding that they do. I mean,
their game book's right out in the open.
Right.
I would reference
it's called
JTRIG.
Today it's called social media influencer, and that's what these people are literally hired as, social media influencers. And by the way, guys, most of them are recruited from the gaming ranks, which, I've always suspected there was something really crazy going on with gaming, about what type of subliminals it was doing and what it was doing to people's brains, literally. But it just seems like, these gamers that are out there, these games make their minds completely malleable and suggestible to really stupid stuff that they just go like zombies. It's crazy.
I think they're also paying them, Rob.
Well, that's part of it too. Yeah, there's a paycheck involved.
Well, and it is exactly like you say, through gaming, because so many of them, their tags, their previous videos or other things they've commented on are completely gamer related. So you're definitely onto something there. Yeah.
Well, and I can at least speak to that because look, one of my first memories when I was very young, my mom accidentally lit the curtains on fire Christmas morning, and we got the original Nintendo Entertainment System that Christmas, and that memory sticks with me forever. Every time I smell something burning a certain way, it reminds me of that. But I've been an avid gamer my entire life, like as long as I can remember. I mean, I have binged on many games, but I'll be the first one to tell you there are tons of subliminal messages and things like that in games, and it'll completely I wouldn't say rot your brain, but it will put you in a state that
makes
is
you
not
suggestible
to non-productive and suggestible, exactly. And that's exactly where they want us, right? I mean,
Yep. So anyway, all right, let's move over to Zack. Good times for all. He's been patiently waiting for an intro. How you doing, Zack? And what do you think of all this craziness?
Yeah, I mean, the trolls have been here forever. They're going to be here until, the powers that be actually admit that they're lying, which I don't know if that'll ever happen. But yeah, I mean, John nailed it on the head. I mean, go look up JTRIG. You can apply for JTRIG right now. You can go be a government troll and get paid for it right now. So it's not even a question that are there trolls? Are these? And yeah, there are some trolls that are just really sad people that don't have lives and have, it's great that they found a group, but a group that is fighting something that they don't believe in like this, that's just sad in itself, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and here's the other part of it too. I mean, the way that the government is coming down on jobs right now, it's probably one of the few jobs that you can do without having to have a certificate, right?
But it's also
you have to be a real asshole.
Yeah.
What you were saying also is true, that it reflects badly on us. But although because we get worn down, when someone with a genuine inquiry comes along, then they just get shot to pieces, because you most people assume that they are just atypical troll. So yeah, it's a double-edged sword, really.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I feel bad for these people. Really,
the average person will behave similarly to a troll for the first few lines of inquiry. But then after a while, a normal person is going to acknowledge a valid point and maybe have a bit of a seed of truth planted in them, right? But the trolls, that never happens, never. And that's by design. It is frustrating. But the thing that gets me is the time that these people spend. I mean, we're talking about a topic that they think is ridiculous, and yet they somehow find 24 hours in every single day to troll the threads and the forums and the videos, the live streams. I just don't see how that's possible for something that you despise, and yet you spend all of your time absorbed in it. I've never understood that. And the only sort of context that makes any degree of sense is if they are, in fact, a paid JTrig type troll.
Yep,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And another thing is people are always saying, oh, you got to have a model. You got to have a model. And you know what? Frankly, and this is something that we're going to start laying down, is a model. Because as far as I'm concerned, we do have a model. We have a model that is functional in so many ways. And not only that, I mean, the easy part, guys, is debunking the globe. It's utterly ridiculous what they want us to believe with the gold, like with the globe, like selenelian eclipses, impossible configurations that are going on, the fact that we can see things that we absolutely shouldn't be able to. It goes on and on and on. But honestly,
show me a quadrupole.
Well, anyone can have a model, can't they? Anyone can have a model of anything. You can have a model of Narnia, but a real model can withstand testing. And the model that we put forward, or the parts of the model that we put forward, can stand testing, whereas their model is as valid as Narnia.
Yeah.
And I think it is somewhat our responsibility to come up with a model, but more important than that, I would say our responsibility is to show how absurd the globe is. And once you've done that, that changes a person's paradigm. It gets them on the right side of their brain. And I think that a cogent model will come, especially if we're able to take, say, NASA's budget and apply it to geodetic surveying of the far south. Until something like that, right,
Just
one day
of NASA's budget. We don't need a lot.
If there's no curvature, no motion of the Earth, then I'm sorry, there's no model necessary to prove anything. The globe is done. It's dead.
Yeah. And I mean, say someone had a model of a spacecraft, and we all sat round a round table and looked at the spacecraft and started picking holes in it and saying, well, this wouldn't work, and that wouldn't work, and that would fall off. And it doesn't mean that you have to have a working model yourself in order to be able to point out the failings of their model. So, all this having a model thing.
We would at least give credit where credit's due and say, well, that bit right there is some real good engineering.
Sure.
Right.
Why not?
I saw a question in chat just real quick. Someone asked, where do they go to find good flat earth videos if, the government, Google are censoring it, YouTube and all these people?
Go to 2016.
Yeah. Oh, the glory days. But no, I point everybody towards David Weiss's Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app.
Exactly. That's a great place.
What about the stop, look, in there? Listen?
That's another good one. Yeah, there's a flatearth101.com, I think, is one.
And let's not forget about this one, guys. GLOBEBUSTERS 24/7 Flat Earth channel, right?
There you go.
Which is also part of the app and has a fabulous selection that answer a lot of the basic questions continuously. And at least you'll be able to be exposed to other, content creators. And we try and keep this updated as much as possible. But there's well over 1,000 videos on it already. So if you haven't started there, do so, because that's where you're going to need to go.
If you're going to do a Google search, then you need to ignore the first 1,000 pages at least, and before you'll get to any of the decent stuff. And avoid the Flat Earth Society for all accounts. Sorry.
For sure. And no, you're fine. Another good place to go is a place inside your mind where you exercise your own discernment and use your own common sense as the metric, right? Because that's what it really boils down to is logic, common sense. And don't trust me. Don't trust anybody trying to teach you things. I mean, sure, you can have ears and listen, but at the end of the day, you are your own sort of navigator in this thing. And
Well, that's the
you're
best place to start
Right.
researching is to go out and test it for yourself, because then no one has to tell you what you're seeing or what conclusions you come to. And that's the beauty of the flat earth, is that you can go out and test it. Everyone can go out and test it for themselves.
Yep, absolutely true. Okay, sorry guys, I was just posting links for the GLOBEBUSTERS 2 link. And trolls, if you're going to go there and just troll, you'll get about one comment in, maybe two, and then you're going to be banned. So best you just keep your mouth shut. And if you really want to listen and learn, then listen and learn, and keep your BS remarks to yourself. You know, many people in this community are highly educated. We are very intelligent. We're not stupid. And basically it's troglodytes like you people that think you're smarter than we are. And I'm sorry, but you're not. You are not. So the flat earthers are some of the most intelligent people I've ever met. And, you know, you either are going to listen to what we have to say or not. But if you don't want to listen, then just go away, because we don't want to have anything to do with you, because this is a very viable, realistic thing that we're saying here, that the earth is not a ball. We have all the evidence in the world, and I mean all the evidence in the world, and we also have a ton of evidence proving that it's absolutely flat through thousands, hundreds, if not thousands of measurements and experiments. We have FE Core. We have a organization of scientists and engineers that are dedicated to doing nothing but these type of tests. It goes on and on and on. I mean, there are literally millions of flat earthers all over the world. And, you know, for people to say that, well, flat earth has never been accepted by any culture, it's like, no, it was accepted by every culture. And they didn't just give it up. They didn't just give it up, right? Because, you know, NASA went to space in '69 and showed them space, because NASA hasn't shown us anything, absolutely nothing. And in fact, we can come up and show you hundreds, if not thousands of CGI, blatantly CGI images. And look, if it's real, why do they need to use CGI at all? And the thing is NASA will even admit it. They will tell you straight up, they don't have a single picture of Earth from outer space. Why is that? Well,
And
go ahead, John.
you missed the punchline there of having millions of flat earthers all over the globe.
All over the
Which
globe.
I've seen-
That's right. Yeah.
I've seen so many
you know-
times. And one day I searched that phrase on Twitter and literally came back with pages and pages and pages of different accounts of people saying the same thing about the joke about flat earthers all over the globe. And these people are literally cutting and pasting they're bots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was the flat Earth diss of the day. But you know, the thing about flat earthers, where they all by default have an advantage, is we were all bona fide globe Earth believers all throughout our lives, throughout school, just like everybody else. I mean, we were normal people, just like everybody else. The thing is, we looked at this topic and we weren't tricked or deluded into believing some fantasy. We realized that it's the truth, and we understand both sides of this argument, right? Whereas the globe Earth proponents, all of them, as a rule, have simply not looked into this, or they're
just straight up lying. Yeah,
Right,
which is
like,
more
there's
the
no in
case.
between. Right.
Yeah, I have to say I was one of the, well, maybe the exception to the rule, that when I first heard flat Earth, and it was Eric DeBay's Higher Side Chat podcast, that it immediately made sense to me, and I couldn't get enough of it after that. And the reason I put myself down as that is because I'd researched the moon landings for 3 years straight, just to try and gain an idea as to whether it was real or not. And I knew at that point that it wasn't, but I never knew why they did it, or what was the point in faking the moon landings, or any of those things. And Flat Earth just answered all those questions straight off.
And in fact, John, it's good you answer. That is one of the questions that somebody at the very beginning of the show, somebody named Crystal, asked that question, and I said I would answer it live on air. Because again, you know, me, John, and Jeran did a really fabulous answer to this. It kind of went viral, and Sharice Shalon remastered it and everything because it was a really, really cool answer. From all three of us, we were just kind of having a good day that day. And, that's the thing that you have to get your mind around. Now, guys, I want to start out by saying that it is only now, unfortunately, that so many people are beginning to realize that there is something really effed up about this world, right? I mean, a lot of people have seen it before, but it is only now, especially with what's going on today, and I don't need to mention that because I don't want to get banned. We know what's going on. The world is in a state of pandemonium. It's absolutely insane what is happening, right? And now people are starting to perk their ears up and go, what the hell is going on here, right? What is going on? Well, ladies and gentlemen, what is going on now is just another agenda of what most flat earthers and most truth seekers have known is going on in the world for quite some time. There is an active agenda to literally, a lot of people will, first of all, will think that, NASA's doing this and all the space agencies are doing this for the money, the $65 million a day. And while that is a very lucrative reason to do it, that is not the reason. Because the elite print the money. They don't give a shit about the money. They'll print it all day long, and they do print it all day long. So they don't care about making the money. What this is about, and what it's always been about, and what it's always, throughout history, when you start researching this, is that this world is completely controlled by an elite class of people that own the financial systems, all the top communication industries, the newspapers, the media, the medical industries is all controlled by the very same thing. The educational system, absolutely everything. So what is the agenda? Well, the agenda simply is if you're going to have the 1% that is controlling the 99%, then the only way you can do it really is by their own consent or by their own mind, making them think that they're the ones that are calling for these things to come into action. An example, how we have been fooled multiple times into going to war for stupid lies and reasons, right? We go to war for a lie, but really it's to cause more separation and more division. Ultimately, the reason, ladies and gentlemen, is to control your mind. To control your mind, to control your thoughts, to control your body, to control your very soul. Now that sounds absolutely friggin' crazy. Yes, it does. But if you start looking into this and you really take a look around and look at the news and what's coming on, my God, people, it becomes very apparent. It becomes very apparent.
It may sound crazy, but it's in the words government.
Mind
to
control.
govern your mind. It's simply there. Entertainment to entertain it.
Well, and I would say one of the most important things in this life is to know yourself. If you don't know yourself, you really have nothing. And unfortunately, if we've been completely misled about where we live, who we are, where we came from, what is our purpose, then how could we ever know ourselves? And I think that is a huge part of this. I mean, that's really the end game, is to hide from ourselves who we are and our full potential as a people. And it's working, it's definitely working.
Because if we knew all of that, we wouldn't need government or anyone controlling us.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's... Oh, go ahead, Zach.
I was just going to say, I know there's a lot of biblical flat earthers. And in the book, it tells you that, Satan, the opposition, that's what the word Satan means, by the way. It's not a person. It just means the opposition. So Satan is going to try to invert everything. Everything God has created, he's going to try to invert it and make you think the opposite. Well, look around. I think the Bible nailed that one right on the head.
Yeah.
They knew this was going to happen.
Yeah. Yep. Medicine makes you sick. Everything is backwards. Doctors make you ill. Medicine makes you sick.
Stationary plane turns into a spinning ball.
The law system is all corrupted.
Yeah, the law system is totally corrupt. Yep.
Science.
Politicians do not represent the people. They represent the corporations, and the corporations are against the people. I mean, people, that's what we've been trying to tell people for a long time, and you have got to wake up to this, because we are literally on the verge of losing everything we ever had, our freedoms. And you people, by the way, that are working for this system as social media influencers, you really should be ashamed of yourself. You really should be. You are betraying humanity. There is no worse crime than what you are doing by betraying humanity. You won't even take the time to legitimately look into this to see what we're saying, whether or not it's true, and whether or not you believe the flat earth is true or not. I mean, granted, it's very relevant, especially in our eyes, but if you can't see the rest of what's going on in the world, then you are truly deaf, dumb, blind, and stupid. Okay? And you can't put it in any other way than that. Go ahead, John.
Well, I was going to say, the depravity of these elites truly knows no bounds. And this is sort of backing up the wagon a bit to where we started this little detour. But okay, so after World War II, the United States government sent hundreds of thousands, many, many thousands of men over to England, France, Germany to fight and die for the country. My grandfather and 4 of his brothers fought in World War II. They all lived. But after World War II, in the aftermath of it, the United States and Russia essentially secretly and covertly recruited Nazi higher-ups, scientists, SS officers, in a thing called Project Paperclip. And basically, under the noses of the American people, they put these guys into very high-profile, lucrative positions in the government. Many of them wound up at NASA, no less. And, the thing is, whatever your views are on that war, that's sort of besides the point. The American people at that time would have been absolutely furious if they found out what they were doing with these Nazis. And the thing is, so one minute we're supposed to send our sons and brothers over to foreign lands to fight and die and kill these people. And then out of the other side of their mouth, they're recruiting them to come and work for our government. Right. So these people have no sort of allegiance. And it just goes to show you that we're not dealing with regular average folks. We're dealing with, I kind of agree with David Icke to a degree. I mean, what have we got? Little green men in people suits? Like, what are these things?
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, it really, it's insane. It truly is. So that's really the why of it. Okay. Like I said, it's all about controlling your mind, controlling what you think, controlling what you do. I mean, just like now, there are certain things so many things, your freedoms are being taken away unless you go and you get something. And we all know what I'm talking about, right? If you don't get that, you're going to not be able to buy groceries. What is it? Revelation, right? Revelation speaks very deeply about this, about the mark of the beast, that you are caused to not be able to do commerce or do anything like this unless you take this mark. Well, I'm not exactly sure what it means to have the mark yet. And there's a lot of different, differential opinions on this. But what I can see is at least part of this coming true by our freedoms being taken away unless we comply with the government. And this is absolutely insane, so it's just...
Well,
yeah, go ahead, John.
All Bibles and everything and religions aside, I've just got the attitude that if they're telling me to do it, then I won't be doing it, and that's been my attitude my whole life. So it's it's the way to rub me up the wrong way.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, that was
I was going to say I try to separate sort of biblical arguments from factual, scientific, geometric, physical arguments, because there's a big difference, and it depends on who you're talking to. But there is the point to be made that science, in many big ways, has been essentially weaponized, aimed at religions, not just Christianity, in order to discredit them. And it works on most people. I mean, the goat herders of the Fertile Crescent in ancient times thought the earth was flat and stationary, right? Like a bunch of dummies. And so, of course, everything else they wrote down, you can't believe these guys. They didn't even know where they lived. But when you realize that they were actually right about that, maybe we need to revisit and actually see what these guys had to say, because it was us who were the dummies after all, right?
But they every second word out of their mouth is, science, science, science. Follow the science. We go where the science leads us. But they openly admit, Michio Kaku, that none of them follow scientific method. and therefore they are literally admitting that they are pseudoscientists, and that's what they pump out to us. It's not science in the slightest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, theoretical physics in its very nature is beyond our ability to falsify, verify, or confirm. And so it cannot be a science. It is strictly and forever in the realm of pseudoscience.
Yeah, exactly.
Frankly.
Well, pseudoscience it's this whole new branch of science that's been, I mean, science took a dead stop basically with Einstein. Einstein was thrown in and praised to be this world genius when he was dumber than a box of rocks. Everything he said is utterly retarded. And guys, you know, for you ballers out there who used to laugh at the flat earthers because the Flat Earth Society claimed that the earth was being accelerated upward at 9.8 meters per second squared, right? You know who promoted that and who still promotes it to this day? It was Albert Einstein that came up with that theory, and the mainstream relativists, people promoting Albert Einstein, still promote that model today, except they're saying that it's the ball Earth that is going up and you know, at 9.8 meters per second squared. They seem to have forgotten about all the other areas on the ball Earth, but it's just retarded. And then, of course, they ridicule and pin it on the flat earthers, you know, which we've been saying since day one. That is an utterly retarded theory. It makes no sense whatsoever. And in fact, it was Albert Einstein that came up with it, and it is actively, and I'm going to play you a clip here shortly. It was actively him, and it is actively promoted today, guys. And we've done shows on this before, you know we have. It's just unbelievable, the crap that they come up with, and then it is actually defended like it has any tangibility to it. It does not. It's complete nonsense. So,
well,
yeah,
and I would say quite literally.
Let's go,
I was just
Zack.
going to say real quick. Yeah, Einstein is the Elon Musk of, you know, his time. Jeran did a great video on Elon Musk. The guy asked Elon a question, and the first words to come out of Elon's mouth was, "How do I get the camera? Where do I look to make it look like I'm looking at the camera?"
Yeah, I saw that. I disagree with the use of the word savage, though. he ain't part of my clan.
As ludicrous as the Earth accelerating upward at 9.8 meters per second squared, I would say that orbital mechanics in general are far more ludicrous than that by leaps and bounds and by many different examples. But of course, it's ridiculous. Orbital mechanics has tons of problems. And, you know, if you think that is ridiculous in terms of the Earth raising upwards, accelerating, you know, orbit and axial rotation is just absolutely retarded compared to that.
Yeah, I agree, John. All I had to do was look at the index of the orbital mechanic book. I downloaded the whole big PDF of this college orbital. I started going through, and more of the book is about putting in these mathematical equations to correct for issues than actual orbital mechanics or gravity or any of that stuff. It's such nonsense. It doesn't work. They have to make dark matter 95% of the universe to try to get, and it still doesn't work.
Yep.
Yeah, orbital mechanics is. I agree.
It's ridiculous. And really, the real reason why we're 10 to the 120th off is because of the scale. I mean, our little flat Earth here, relatively speaking. We have the size of the Earth, which is roughly, we're going to say maybe 75,000 miles in circumference. And if that's all of it, great. If there's more, then obviously, then there's more. But if you look at that and you compare it to, what they're showing us and saying, oh, these are a billion light years away, or, 800 million light years away. I mean, yeah, that's when you're going to start getting errors of 10 to the 120th, like Michio Kaku says, right? So it's no wonder why, they can't come up with a theory that holds any water. And a lot of it is based around gravity. And, that's a whole nother point of contention between flat earthers and ball earthers, is this whole gravity thing. And then and believe it or not, then there's a whole nother faction, which I happen to be a part of, and Zack does, which deals with gravity as a completely different phenomenon altogether. But, that's beside the point on this, but it's just amazing,
But I think that's kind of worth unpacking, though, Bob, because they say in physics that the only natural forces are the strong nuclear, weak nuclear, electromagnetic, and gravitic. I would say that the only true natural force is electromagnetic. Period. And
I
if that's
agree.
the case, wow. I mean, if we could get science on board with the truth, if that is the truth, which I suspect that it is, think of what things are possible in the next 5 or 10 years, man.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But we've got to get off. We've got to get off this course that, there are certain flat earthers out there that are definitely steering us in the wrong direction. And am I going to say they are here to put flat earth off the tracks and run us in a rail into the mountainside? No. I'm just going to say they're stupid, because the people that are promoting this relative density disequilibrium theory have no damn clue what they're talking about. And it's really, really frustrating. But again, another subject for another day. Okay. So anyway, this guy that asked that question, this Crystal guy, and I don't know if I read the question or not, I'll read it now, that he asked. He said, one serious question. Do you guys think that thousands of people who work for NASA and all other space organizations around the world are lying to you guys? Like, why would they lie? I'm seeking answers. Okay, great. Okay. So yeah, that's why they would lie, because this is all part, and it's not them. First of all, Crystal, you seem to think that everybody at NASA knows about this. They don't. Only the very upper echelon knows about what's truly going on. Look at the Manhattan Project, right? The nuclear bomb and stuff like that. There was only just a very few people knew about it, and yet there were over 100,000 people involved in it, right? It is not difficult when you compartmentalize knowledge, who knows what, and on a need-to-know type of basis, it keeps it very easy to keep others out of the loop. Then you have people that are actually out there building satellites, right? And they do send these satellites up on balloons. Nevertheless, they're being built. So you have credible people saying, hey, I build those for a living. They're not lying. They're not lying at all. You have people that are building pieces and parts for spacecraft. They're not lying. They're not lying at all. But ultimately, when you get to the big picture at the very top upper echelon, those people do know what's going on. And so you would make it sound like every pilot on Earth knows that this is true, that they're in on it. That's bullshit. They're not in on it. Every NASA employee is in on it. That's bullshit. They're not in on it. Everybody that has anything to do with any engineering or sciences at all has to be on it. They're not in on it. They don't know any better. They're only repeating what they have been taught, which is exactly like what you and I have been taught. Okay?
It's like saying, it's like claiming the receptionist at Enron knew what was happening in the boardroom on the top floor. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
It truly is.
Right. I mean, probably 99% of the people that work for NASA have no idea about any of the faking of space. They do their job. They're compartmentalized. They focus on their task. They get paid well, and they have no reason to question it. Just a handful of people at the top of that pyramid, and of course, probably the astronauts, and even that is in question. But just a handful of people are in on the hoax, and that's the best way to keep it. I mean, the more people that you have involved in some sort of a heist or a hoax or a scam, the more apt you are to get busted. And so I'm sure that they keep it to a very small, tight-knit group, which is why most of the astronauts, if not all of them, happen to be Freemasons, which they've already sworn held secrecy.
Yeah, by virtue of death.
Freemasons.
Right.
33rd degree. Every astronaut that went to the moon was a 33rd degree Mason. Which he wasn't the Mason down at your local lodge playing ping pong and drinking beer every Tuesday night. You know,
And
these are the upper echelon.
This also isn't to say that there aren't NASA employees that have seen through the lies, and you've had them on GLOBEBUSTERS.
Yes, we have.
Well, and it's like, are they really going to raise their hand and call NASA out on it? I mean, I guess they could, but they're going to lose their job. They're going to be laughed out of the room. They'll lose their credibility. So there's no real incentive for them to blow the whistle. And so, sure, there's a sort of a cooling or icing effect in that regard. But, I've had people say, my Uncle George designed toilets for the ISS. Are you calling my Uncle George a liar? Of course not. We're not calling your Uncle George a liar. I'm sure he's a great guy, and he probably did design that toilet. The point is the toilet isn't in the ISS orbiting the ball Earth. That's the only difference.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly it, John. I mean, so that's the biggest thing that is so frustrating to us, because you guys make these blanket assumptions. Oh, well, if one pilot's in on it, then every pilot's got to be in on it. If one astronaut's in on it, every astronaut's got to be. Well, I would say pretty much the astronauts would have to be in on it. That's pretty much the upper echelon. But there's only been, 500 people supposedly in space, right?
Well,
I mean,
you've got to
Bob,
remember.
You postulated last week. I mean, there is a chance that there's hypnotism involved, and so maybe the astronauts have been implanted false memories of going to space. I mean, that is a possibility.
It's possible.
MK Ultra was going on openly now. It's declassified while the moon missions were taking place.
I don't think you'd even need it. You remember the UK TV show called Space Cadets?
Yes. I've heard of it. I've seen some episodes, actually.
So have I. And those guys, they were just, they thought they were in space. It was
they did.
They didn't have to drug them. They didn't have to hypnotize them or anything. They were just gullible enough to believe what they were told and question nothing, to the point where they thought they were in space. And that should tell you, that speaks volumes.
Exactly.
And scary stuff.
And with CGI computer graphics and video display systems, dude, you could go on a roller coaster and you would swear to God you were on a spaceship, right? I mean, it is that good. The VR, all they have to do is enhance it with some, motion enhancement type of stuff. Absolutely and a piece of cake.
You've only got to see that they take one person, one candidate out of 4,000 interviewed. You've got to wonder what the criteria is for that one candidate. And I think it's gullibility and basic just
suggestibility. Yeah, suggestibility. Right. I mean, I always like to leave room for plausible deniability, because I think deep down I am an optimist, and I like to think that maybe there's a chance that there are good people that are astronauts. I mean, more than likely they're in on it, but there is that possibility. And, at the end of the day, the less people that are in on this, the better. I mean, what more of a perfect hoax would it be than even the astronauts don't know what they're doing? I mean, that would be the perfect way to do it.
I mean, they could literally say to these guys, you are the cream of the crop, you're the best of the best, and program that into their head throughout their entire training, and then say, look, I know you thought you were going to be bouncing around on the ISS, etc., and asking questions from schoolgirls in the USA, but we can't show the ISS because of security breaches, need to know stuff. So what we're going to need you to do is to go into our mock-up studio and act like you're on the ISS. Well done, tap on the shoulder. You're doing all this for your country, and I would almost guarantee it they would buy it.
Well, here's another interesting point. I can show you a dozen interviews with astronauts where they ask them pointedly, what do the stars look like from deep space or the ISS? Half of them will tell you you can't see any stars from space, and the other half will tell you you see more stars from space than you do from the ground. So there's a bit of a discrepancy here. And what that tells me is they never sat down and had a meeting and got everybody on the same page here. Now, what does that prove? It doesn't prove anything, but to me it suggests that maybe it's not as well orchestrated at the top as we think. I mean, it could be very well something to where, the wags the dog type thing. I don't know if that's a good analogy, but I mean, wow, the bumbling idiot astronauts that, jumping around in monkey suits, playing the guitar and playing ping pong with water, never invent anything, never really accomplish anything in space. For all you know, they think they're doing a jam up job. And they sleep perfectly well at night because, as far as they know, that's what they're doing, right? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, guys. So, all right, let's move this on to the next area that I wanted to cover. But before we do that, I do want to kind of give a shout out to the Santa Monica meetup, which is taking place on this Friday. So I've got a 1-minute promo here that I want to play. So if you're out in California in the Santa Monica area this weekend, it looks like it's going to be quite an event. Austin's going to be there. I'm sure Jeran probably will be, and lots of other flat earthers. So I'm going to go ahead and play their little meetup promo here. And if you can make it, I'm sure they'd be glad to see you. Here we go. Zodiac Clock app. Dave Weiss has completed the friend finder portion of the app, and it works fabulous. And there are just thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of flat earthers all over the place. It's unbelievable how many they are. So, and everybody I'm sure is going to be coordinating through the app when you get out there. So that's a really, really cool thing. So there you have it, guys. If you can make it, I'm sure they'd love to see you.
And that's also a tiny percentage of the amount of people that have downloaded the app, let alone that tiny percentage of the totality of flat earthers on this plane. So
exactly.
Yeah, I believe David has about a little over 100,000 people that have the app, and I just checked, it was 21,800 and something that have a blue dot on. So that's about 20%. But you got to think, what was it in Brazil alone?
Oh, there were millions.
Million flat earthers, something like that.
In Brazil alone.
So that 100,000 is just a fraction of the percent of actual flat earthers out there.
Yep. So we'll have to get Eru to, get that app through the, Spanish speaking community out into Brazil, and then it's going to go crazy even more.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We need some sort of campaign to send the app to a flat earther that doesn't have it or whatever. If they could send me a phone that had an operating system. Sorry,
Sepultura's out of Brazil. They're one of my favorite bands of all time. And Nunez said he knew the guys. And if we can get Sepultura on the app, I'm stick a fork in me, man. I'm done.
There you go. All right, guys. So let's see. I'm going to bring this over. So what this is, guys, this is the back room in the GLOBEBUSTERS studio. And as if you shills don't know this, and I can't believe you, well, I do believe you don't know this because you don't watch the videos, you just come and troll. But I have all comments set for review. So anything you post doesn't go anywhere until myself or one of my moderators approves it. Okay. So there are a few questions here that I wanted to save up and kind of answer on air. And I'm gonna do that right now. I think it's kind of interesting. So this first one specifically right here is by a guy named King Crimson, and I have not released this to the public yet. I will as soon as I do this. But he comes in, and this was after Sunday's show, and he says, "I design spacecraft for a living and can assure you they're not fake." Now, guys, there is an industry called aerospace engineering, and what's interesting about this is not only would it deal with the design of aircraft, but theoretically it would also deal with the design of spacecraft, right? But what's amazing is that they don't seem to know anything about vacuum differentials, very little. So this guy who designs spacecraft, look what he says here. So I responded back to him. Actually, let me bring up a better view of this. Hang on a second, guys. Where is it?
This would be like a submarine designer having no idea what pressures a submarine would need to withstand. That would strike me as a pretty useless submarine designer from the get-go.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. So let's let me just go ahead and approve this.
Well, and of course, NASA no longer live tests their vehicles in vacuum chambers anymore, as if it's not even relevant whatsoever to what they're doing.
That's right. Absolutely. They don't, it doesn't matter to them anymore. So, all right. So now I've approved it, brought it into the light. And he says,
see them. Sorry.
Okay. So he says, "I design spacecraft for a living and I can assure you they are not fake." Yeah, okay, great. Whatever. And maybe you do design aircraft. I doubt spacecraft, but maybe spacecraft. But whatever. So I answered him and I said, "Do you really? Then tell me, Mr. Spacecraft Designer, how do you overcome the structural stresses created by a 10 to the negative 17th torr space pressure separated by less than a quarter-inch steel aluminum composite from a 760 torr spacecraft pressure. Your answer here could win you a Nobel Prize, so don't muck it up. Follow-up question.
Real good engineering.
Real good engineering. Why doesn't the Sandusky vacuum facility use the same materials and technique so they could avoid having to use 8 feet of concrete and steel for a facility that only generates less than a fraction of that pressure differential? I'm really looking forward to your answer, right? So the guy responds to it, and oh man, don't tell me he deleted it. Oh no, here it is. Okay. No, he did respond to it, and he says, "This is not my area of expertise." Really? I thought you were an aerospace engineer, dude. It's like, well, if it's not your area, whose is it?
Spaceship? Yeah, wouldn't they want the person like designing and building the spaceship to kind of know something about this stuff? Isn't that, you know?
It's
Maybe
patently absurd.
The doorknobs or something, you know, he's like Uncle Joe worked for NASA.
Yeah. So anyway, he says, "This is not my area of expertise." So alrighty then. Nevertheless, in the spirit of friendly discourse, right, as he slams us at the end of this, but you'll see that in a minute, I will have a crack at it. I would guess that the difference between a pressurized container on Earth versus one in space would be approximately 1 bar. Well, no shit, Sherlock. You obviously didn't watch the show, or you would know that there's only 1 bar preference between a 760 torr or 14.7 psi or 1018, whatever it is, kilopascals, and 0, right? Perfect vacuum, 0.
So
there's only 1 bar.
Absolutely nothing about vacuums.
He knows Jack, right? And you would think that would be kind of important, right? About understanding vacuums, right? And we went through this last week, guys, about how, you know, if you don't understand anything else, and I will be making a request to a lot of the ballers and people out there to help me convey this message, because the way that it's presented, it's very difficult to comprehend, right? Because we can sit there and say, okay, if you go from a 760 torr pressure system, which is basically sea level here on Earth, okay, and you go down, you go to the Kármán line, which is like a 20 kilopascal level of pressure, not vacuum, but pressure, but it's considered a vacuum with respect to, you know, the sea level pressure, right? So that is obviously less than 1 bar difference. Yet, to be able to contain the pressure differential, the massive amounts of power, it takes several inches of steel to be able to keep things from being crushed or imploding or exploding, depending on what the pressure differential is. And it doesn't matter whether it's implosive or explosive. The same basic idea is taking place here, right? So the way that they do it is because you can't go into an actual negative torr. They say 10 to the negative 17th torr, but that's still a positive number, guys. Meaning it's above 0. You cannot go below 0 because 0 in itself is a perfect vacuum. So I guess the question that I would be asking if I was in aerospace engineer school, I'd be saying, so what exactly does that represent? How many pounds per square inch, does a perfect vacuum represent when you have on the other side of it 14.7, right? And of course, a lot of people are going to say, well, 14.7 pounds per square inch. And then you would say, well, if that's true, then why is it that the Sandusky Space Facility says that they have to have 8-foot thick steel and concrete walls to be able to stop the vacuum from drawing air and concrete and things right through those walls, right? To keep them from imploding down, right? Why does it require something that's 8 feet thick to do that? All right.
What struck me as interesting as well is from this guy who unashamedly admits he knows absolutely bugger all about vacuums, then goes on to say that he can't be bothered to research your question about the Sandusky vacuum. I mean, what?
What a dick. I know.
Why do you bother existing? What's the point if you're a spacecraft engineer and you can't even be bothered to research vacuums? Great.
Right. And guys, if you remember last week, I demonstrated that the vacuum, as long as you have a perfect seal or a great seal or whatever, you can take a shop vacuum. And I used the Mythbusters own video, right? They took a shop vacuum, lifted up a 3,000 pound car with basically a 3 psi or 20 kilopascal, whatever, vacuum, right? Shop vac. That's all it took. All it needs is a perfect seal, right? Well, in space, there has to be perfect seals, right? So if you have 14 psi on the inside of the space station, and you have 10 to the negative 17th or even 10 to the negative 6th torr on the outside, why is it then that, you've got a much greater pressure differential than they're dealing with at Sandusky, and also a much larger facility? The space station is much, much bigger than the Sandusky facility, right? Again, concentrate, ballers, listen to what I am saying. Why does it require 8-foot thick concrete and steel walls to keep it from breaking down? Do you understand that question? Do you get that? If it was as simple as, oh, it's just one bar, which ironically, it is as simple as one bar. However, it takes on a whole new meaning as soon as you get down into the negative